live stream. I am your host, Mike Ursery, aka the Liberty Ginger, and with me is Michael and the Pure Madness one. We might have a couple more people show up to the panel a little later. I am not sure about when they will be here, but when they do, they will pop in and they will say hello. Tonight, our topic tonight is big tech declaring an info war on people like Alex Jones and others? I'm sure everyone watching is well aware of what happened with Alex Jones yesterday. He had his content pulled from Facebook, Spotify, Google, Pinterest, and Apple pulled him from their podcast. Not long after that, we learned about some accounts being suspended on Twitter. Some of those prominent names, Dan McAdams, who is the executive director of the Ron Paul Institute, Scott Horton, who is the managing director of the Libertarian Institute, and Peter Van Buren, who, as you might know, he is the former State Department employee. He blew the whistle on government lies about the Iraq War, ended up losing his job because of it. He later wrote a book about it. But first off, before we really dig into this, I want to bring up 3 key points that we're going to talk about tonight. The first question, because Alex Jones has talked about this before, about how they would try to silence him. I mean, you know, Alex Jones is just the master of conspiracy theories. He has a conspiracy theory for everything, whether it's false flags, gay frogs, whatever it is. If it's something that he can make it to a conspiracy, he will do it, because that is what Alex Jones does. But the real question is this actually a purge? Or are the people who are being suspended and banned from these platforms, are they just violating the terms of service? And the second point we'll talk about is if this is actually a purge, is this even going to be effective? And then the final point that we'll talk about is, are they being, if it really is just a matter of violating terms of service and breaking the rules, are they being consistent with it? But Michael, I'll start with you first. What was your initial take on, you know, Alex, who is like the bigwig of, you know, of social media being banned from all these prominent platforms?
Well, I mean, you know, first thing I thought was like, oh, I can't wait for the memes. But you know, in general, when I see things like this, you know, it comes back to you know, the whole fake news thing, and you know, which news is actually fake news. And I mean, obviously, Alex Jones ranks pretty high on that, but you know, most people aren't. I think most people don't really watch him and take him seriously. He's more of an entertainer. But you know, they might have that as like a mask of, oh, well, we're not limiting what he says. We're just limiting fake news, and he's clearly fake news.
Yes, well, yeah, he is. And I mean, the people who watch him, don't they kind of know that he is, though? I mean, does anybody really even take him seriously whenever he does this? I mean, like, you know, the whole thing about
There's
you
only
always
what's
have
some.
that?
crazy nut jobs. You always will find people who would believe him. That everyone, there are people a little bit believing Hillary after what he said. There are people who believe what Merkel said or what Trump says. Of course, you're gonna find people
Well,
who believe Alex Jones. They do
Oh yeah,
yeah,
exist.
but I think that the number of people, though, I think those numbers might be really small. I mean, I don't know how many people. I mean, there were times where I would watch Alex, and I did it just for entertainment purposes because I wanted to hear about what he said.
I
And I
think
mean, there are
work for him does believe him to a certain extent. So why would you work
right
for him?
for the entertainment value. Honestly,
That can be.
I mean,
can be.
it's definitely small in comparison, but I don't think it's as small as everyone thinks it is, because there's a lot of crazy fucking people in this country and everywhere else. So you know, it's probably like like 1,000 to 1 Alex Jones viewers actually take him seriously, but out of like, you know, 10 million views, how many fucking crazy people is that?
Uh, I'm not sure. I kind of suck at math, so I couldn't really tell you the exact number from that. But I mean, you know, I'm not really sure what Alex Jones actually did to violate, Facebook terms of service because, Alex is kind of in hot water right now. He has a lawsuit that's been filed against him. The family of one of these Sandy Hook victims, um, he said that Sandy Hook was a false flag, and he said that the people who were involved, like all the parents and everybody that you saw in the pictures and the videos, he said that they were crisis actors. Now, this family has filed a lawsuit against him. Now, I don't think that him being pulled from all these platforms is in relation to that. I think what it really is that he's violating their terms of service, but I'm not sure exactly what it was that he violated because, I mean, what does he say that's actually hate speech or that's, say, harassing people or anything like that? I
I've
mean,
seen people who said a lot worse things and they are still allowed on it, or even like certain groups of people that literally even by law should be arrested, still be allowed to publicly talk about it. And I'm talking about the pedophiles and shit like that.
right.
So
Yeah, I mean, you
it's
see
a
all
kind
kinds of stuff.
of unbalanced thing going on there.
Yeah, you see all kinds of trash being spewed, all kinds of hatred being spewed on the internet on a daily basis, and a lot of those accounts don't get suspended or taken down.
Some of you
Um,
even they get
Yeah.
jobs. Just look at that. I forgot that chick's name, but that Asian chick who got a job at New York Times got a job because of that racist shit that she spewed. She just,
oh right, yeah,
Yeah.
she just
Sarah
did,
Jean,
I
Sarah
just,
Jean.
I just made. How the fuck did she say it again? She said it was satire of other people or some bullshit. It was such a terrible excuse, and people still defend it. Like, oh yeah, that is completely right. I'm like, no, this is a fucking weak as fuck excuse.
Yeah,
Yeah,
on how it works, it's probably just like laws. There's so many laws, just like there's so many standards that 99% of Facebook, Twitter, whatever platform you're on are gonna violate those terms. So then whenever someone wants to target you, they can just pick whatever violation that they want. So it's like same thing if you have a headlight out, like you're going to work and you got a headlight, like not a big deal, but they can stop you for it. They're not going to stop you for it 9 times out of 10, but if you look like you're a pot smoker or something, they're probably going to be like, oh, let's see if we can grab this guy for something else.
right. Some of the Twitter accounts that I mentioned that were suspended, as I told you, Dan McAdams, the executive director of the Ron Paul Institute, Peter Van Buren and Scott Horton, they all were suspended from Twitter. Scott Horton, actually, Peter Van Buren, he went on the Libertarian Institute podcast on Sunday, and he was talking about modern McCarthyism. Peter Van Buren goes on Twitter on Monday, and he starts on a rant where he's talking about reporters who don't do their jobs. All they do is that they basically get statements and information from the government, and they report what the government tells them. He said that they don't take the time to question, they don't take the time to fact check, and he calls out all these different reporters for not doing what their job is supposed to be. Well, one of these reporters, Jonathan Katz, begins firing back, and they got into an argument about it. Now, at some point during the exchange, Scott Horton chimes in, and he tells Katz to quit being a quote-unquote boo-hoo little bitch. And that tweet got reported. I don't know if this was Jonathan Katz who ran off and told the authorities about it. Maybe somebody else did, but Scott Horton had his account suspended because of it. Dan McAdams retweeted that tweet, and he had his account suspended, and Peter Van Buren was in the middle of all of it, and he had his account suspended. Now, all three of these are not on the left. I wouldn't necessarily say that they are on the right, but they are not on the left.
The last couple days, 3 more people were suspended, like Energy Ball, Eric D. July, and Amazing Atheist. Amazing Atheist is a left wing who got suspended.
I didn't know about Eric July. When did that happen?
Eric July got suspended. That's new. That's new to me.
Yeah.
I shared in the group. You even asked me who he was.
Yeah,
I did not see that. Oh, okay. Well, Eric July, another prominent libertarian. He is.
Mhm.
If his account is indeed suspended, then put him on the list. Anarchy Ball that we all heard about last night.
But
Anarchy Ball
I'm
having
saying
his
Amazing
account
Oh.
Atheist
suspended.
is the oddball out of the group because he's more an
I know
a
why. I
Bernie
know why that one
fan
happened.
to a certain extent, who got either suspended.
I know why. I know why July got suspended. It's August now.
Yes, sir.
Why did Eric July get suspended?
It's August now. July's over. Kind of corny joke. Yeah, I think I
Good one.
pointed out.
Good one. Josh, welcome to the live stream, buddy.
Hey,
A little corny.
yeah, I've been missing out on a few lately, so I'm trying to get back into the whole groove of things, like doing my
what's up,
own and
Josh?
stuff like that.
Right.
I'm eating like a late dinner right now, so I'm gonna jump in whenever I'm not munching on food, but I'll keep my mic muted so I'm not interrupting everybody. Keep going.
right,
I'll get caught up as you guys go on.
All right, take your time, man. All right, moving on. Now, like I said before, these people are not necessarily on the right, but they're not on the left. Now, you don't hear of many people on the left who get their accounts suspended. So the question to ask then really, is this an actual purge? Is there actual information being silenced? Are there people who are being silenced, and are they?
Left-wing?
Well, Amazing Atheist, I guess, is left wing, but he kind of he doesn't.
Oh yeah.
He's all over the place. I think.
He's an atheist. I don't think
Yeah.
he's really political. He's just an atheist.
They have not seen his videos.
I would say Amazing Atheist is pretty like he's an atheist, but he does get pretty political. But
He's a Bernie fan.
Yeah.
I would say he's on the left side of things, but you know, he also isn't on the like SJW left side of things, so he's not part of the mainstream kind of thing right now. So he is somebody that they want to silence.
Those tendencies I've noticed. Like he is close to it.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Well,
he's not really an SJW, as Josh said. So I mean, now, but you know, the question to ask though, is this an actual purge? Because you're seeing a lot more of these people who are, you know, not left, not necessarily on the right, but they're not on the left. So is this actually information being silenced, and is this a plot, or is this just a coincidence? Timmy,
okay, my 2 cents on that. If I can, real quick. I would
sure.
say
Okay.
There's an obvious like you can point out a series of events. Like it's very there's a pattern going here that they're specific information that doesn't align with what they want to be like mainstream is kind of being pushed to the side. That's why it's not necessarily the left or the right or the middle. It's mainly like if you're not in that SJW kind of socialist mindset of things, you're being pushed to the side by platforms like Google, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. And it's like, you know, they're like the main go-to things for a lot of, and they know they have this power and this ability to do that. It's so obvious that the people that are working for them are doing this, whether or not it's a plot by like the people that actually run these corporations, or it's just something that, like, you know, they have a surplus of these workers that are in these mindsets, which I think is probably more of the issue, like the latter of that. But yeah, there's an obvious silencing going on where they don't want specific information coming out. They don't like it. They silence it. Because, I mean, when's the last time you heard of a David Hogg or somebody like that, their account getting suspended? It's not like these people on the left don't say horrible shit or shit that's even worse. I mean, what's that one chick that writes for the New York Times who's just basically like, fuck white people?
A few minutes ago.
Yeah. All day long. That's it. They say like the worst things ever, but because it's part of like the thought process they want to put out there, it's fine. But then, like, you know, I make a Saturday Night Live reference to the owner of Twitter, and I get a fucking 12-hour ban. You know, like
that's
there's so
problem
much.
with references. You should know them to understand the joke. If you don't know them, you miss the joke.
Oh, well, nobody should know. Okay, if anybody doesn't understand the ignorant slut reference, then shame on you. But anyway,
never aired here, so I would not know.
I would say, like, though, there's an obvious kind of bias going on here. It's kind of hard to make an argument against the fact that there's a bias because of how many people from specific political ideas are being banned or suspended or this or that. You know, like there's a silencing going on. I think it's hard to, I mean, like it's harder to make an argument against that than to make one for it, you know, if that makes any kind of sense.
Well, I know that one concern that, you know, people have, you know, right now there's a lot of campaigns going on. There's a lot of primaries that took place yesterday. In November, you're going to have the midterm elections. I know that one thing that they want to avoid is they want to avoid the so-called Russian meddling that took place in 2016. They're afraid it's going to happen again in 2018. You even have Donald Trump now who's worried about Russian meddling taking place during the midterm elections. I guess that's going to be his go-to if he loses the House and the Senate or doesn't get as many GOP victories as he had probably anticipated because...
If I could say, like, real quick, before Donald Trump won, it was elections are rigged. You know, they're all rigged. Mm-hmm. That was his way of saying, if I lose, it was designed this way, you know. So he's going to try to find some kind of scapegoat. But I would want to say that the whole Russian meddling thing is quite interesting, that they're like, well, we have to silence these people because they might be like Russian meddling things. And it's interesting because the concept of Russian meddling is basically them going onto social media and like pushing ideas out there. It's like they're not actually like interfering with their system. The whole idea of it is that they're on social media promoting candidates or something like that, or posting things. And it's like, okay, if you guys are so against that, by you silencing people that you don't agree with, do you not see that you are also technically meddling by your own definition? Like, if we want to hold that definition of Russian meddling to how it's actually being upheld, but by that same definition, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all guilty of political meddling. Just saying.
Okay, let me chime in real quick. Basically, the term that they're missing, it's not meddling. The term that they're actually looking for is propaganda. And what they need to say and what they don't want to admit to is that if they are right, then Russian propaganda has been able to influence U.S. elections. But they're not willing to say that. What they want to say is meddling, because it makes the populace think, oh, well, they tampered with voting machines, or there's voter tampering. No, it's just propaganda, nothing more, nothing less. And
I would say I agree completely, Tim. Like, I think it's they specifically chose the word meddling because it sounds more like malevolent than it actually is. Because I'm sorry, but if the worst of what Russia did was put out propaganda, the voters still made up their mind. It's not like propaganda is something new to the election process. Like, I'm still waiting to see like what Russia did that was so evil. Because I'm sorry, but if all they did was go on social media and put out propaganda, that's not meddling. That's just by definition of what we've been doing. That's just campaigning at this point.
But for literally both teams, they specifically went to Hillary fans. They voted more pro-Hillary stuff, and with the Trump side, they put it up more pro-Trump stuff. They did it for both teams. So what the fuck is so bad?
Yeah, but what the powers that be and the media doesn't want to admit to is that the average voter is not well informed about who or what they're voting for. They don't want to admit that. They don't want to push that forward. And so if they did, then there would be outrage And just like, and Trump even said it during the campaign, he loves the uneducated. He loves the low information people. And these are the people that voted for him. And he also said, I could walk out on the Times Square and shoot somebody in the head and still wouldn't lose a single vote. And he was absolutely right, because people are very tribal right now when it comes to politics. Politics is the new religion in America. And that is something that people just don't understand, is that people are worshiping Donald Trump as like he was sent from God. And I have seen multiple tweets of people saying, thank God for sending us Donald Trump. And I'll post these in our subgroup showing, the Church of Trump. And this same thing happened under Obama, where people looked at him like he was the Messiah. He's here to save us. He's here to save America. And if you see, there are still people that say, oh, I miss Obama so much. They don't care about policy. They don't care about what these people are doing to the country. All they care about is the cult of personality.
That's the exact point I wanted to add on to that, Tim, that you brought up, was that the same thing has been going on with like Trump or Obama. Like, it's the exact same thing. And if you go back far enough, like, it was the same thing with Bush. And then it was the exact same thing with Clinton. Like, this tribalism with politics is
getting worse and worse.
Yeah, it's progressively gotten worse. But it's been going on for a long time. But you'll be amazed. Like, I remember the day Obama went into office, the left and the right immediately switched. Like, everything switched. It was the right became anti-war, the left became like, apologetic for like Obama's warmongering and stuff like that. And then Trump goes into the office, and it was like the same day. It was a switch again of arguments of everything that we hated. Like, okay, like the left, you see them rant so much against Bush. And then Obama gets into office, and then he's got the same policies as Bush. He's doing some of the same stuff, and it's even worse. And all of a sudden, they don't give a fuck about it. And all of a sudden, the right has a problem with these things because it's just dependent on who is in office. And that's why, like, centrists and libertarians have more of like a moral like standing, because you can stand back and look at both sides and be like, okay, you're both doing this shit. It's wrong no matter who's in office. But I do feel like that's where we get kind of shit on more by the public, is because we don't have that tribalism. We don't have that bias in our minds. Is because we can look at both sides and say, okay, it doesn't matter who is in office. This is wrong. So whoever's in power at the time, we get this kind of like, I would say for anybody who has said something negative about Trump gets the oh, well, he's better than Obama or something. Or if you say something negative about Obama, it's like, well, Trump doesn't do any better. And it's like, I don't like either of those assholes. Like, what is wrong with you? That's kind of yeah. That's where we, like, unfortunately, we're in this standing where we're on this middle ground where people don't understand that you can disagree with both sides. So when you have these,
or they say we could have Hillary.
Yes,
but
Hillary, yeah.
I mean, but really, like, it all comes down to, if your team is doing it, then it must be the right thing. That is what we've come to in politics in America today. And one thing that I've really seen on Twitter more than anything else, because like I was saying before, they're worried about Russian meddling again and Russian bots and all of this. Well, it's come down to where I've seen anyone who says anything against the left or says anything pro-Trump, all people just pounce on them immediately and start saying things like, oh, you must be a Russian bot. I'm going to report you because you are a Russian bot. This isn't a real account. And
for the Obama Day thing, real quick, I posted legitimate criticisms backed up by actual sources of Obama's warmongering and his expanse of the drone program. How many civilians have died? Like, the hundreds of people innocent people that have died because of his drone program. And you know what the response was? Like, laugh my ass off, Russian bot, or something like that. And it's like, do you not have like legitimate criticism? Do you not have like something serious you can say? You're just going to wave me off because you don't like what I'm saying, and then just be like, well, you're a Russian bot. And I'm like, this is the kind of disconnect we're having, where it's like, oh, well, I don't like what you're saying, therefore I don't have to have an actual argument against it. It's just wrong because I don't like it. And I feel like that's where these companies like Twitter and Facebook are so easily able to like ban people they don't like, because it's just like, well, they're not part of the status quo, therefore it's incorrect to think this way.
Well,
it's stop policing.
Well, let me take that one step further. Let me go back to what I said before about people being uninformed. You put out some information on Twitter, you put it on Facebook, you put it anywhere. The uninformed person is just going to recite back some gobbledygook that they heard somewhere that another Trump supporter said or somebody on the left said, and that's their go-to. Right now, it's your Russian bot. Before that, it was, you must be a Trump supporter because you don't like this. You must have voted for Hillary because you don't like that. So I think it's a matter of just the simple fact that the average American right now, and I run across people all the time that are like this, they really don't pay attention to anything below the surface. They will believe anything that comes across mainstream media. And I think the main voices that these platforms right now are starting to silence are the people that are giving information and going below the surface, and the people that are giving legitimate information, citing sources, and are not standing for the dribble that's coming out of the mainstream media that is being fed to the population, and they're eating it up. Right now, you look at Trump supporters are so anti-CNN, the CNN could put out a story right now saying it's raining outside, show you footage of a rainstorm, and they would say it's fake news. Whereas on the other side, the left looks at anything on Fox News, and they could run the exact same story and say, "Oh no, that's fake news." So they won't even believe a weather report, to be honest with you. So we're living at a time right now where you have these platforms that don't want real information. They don't want the truth to spread, and I think that's part of the reason why you see people in the center, libertarians, anarchists, and people on the right that get silenced, but then people on the left who agree with the agenda that they have, they still hold their platforms. They still don't get their accounts shut down. There will be, and this is one of my Nostradamus predictions, there will be a few of the sacrificial lambs on the left that will get their accounts shut down, but they'll be back up within a couple of days. You'll see a big news story about it. Alex Jones got shut down, and then so did, name your sacrificial lamb at this point. And then a couple of days later, it'll be back up and it'll be forgotten about. But it's coming. They have to balance it out somewhere. And so you will see this because it's part of the propaganda. It's part of the way that this machine works. And once you get below the surface and you see what they're actually trying to do, which is to regain control of the entire population, then this stuff will start to quell down a little bit. But as long as people like us and people that do have strong opinions that don't agree with the mainstream opinions and the duopoly continue to voice our opinions and continue to spread as much knowledge as possible about what actually occurs, then they won't be able to stop everyone all at once. And that's why, this live stream is extremely important. That's why, your platform is extremely important. Jeremiah's live stream and his platform is extremely important. We have to be able to let the general populace know we're not going to shut up. We're not going to go away. And everything that we have to say is based in fact and based in truth, and it's not propaganda. And what we're fighting against is propaganda.
Yes, and that brings me back to my original question about, is this a purge? Because like you said that, there will be a lot of people on the right who are shut down. There will be some people on the left who might be shut down momentarily, but then they'll be back up. I was reading a story earlier today that was published back at the beginning of July that said that Twitter had shut down as many as like 70 million accounts over like a 2-month span. And it's because of, the whole Russian meddling thing and disinformation on the internet and propaganda, as you were saying. But I mean, 70 million sounds like an awful lot, but, and is it really necessary? And that brings us into our second point that we'll talk about tonight. Is it really even effective? Because for one thing, Alex Jones, even though he might try, he might say that he's being silenced, but Alex Jones really isn't being silenced per se, because Alex Jones still has Infowars.com. Anyone who wants to watch his show, read his material, anything like that, all they got to do is just go to Alex Jones's message still gets out there. I don't understand why people are rating, because he was taken down from Facebook and from YouTube and from Spotify and from Apple, because Alex Jones' message can still get to the people who want to listen to it. And anyone else, I mean, not everyone has an Infowars.com, but anyone else, if they really wanted to get their message out there, and if other people really wanted to hear it, they would find a way. I mean, Twitter didn't take Alex Jones down. So I guess if Alex wanted to go on Periscope and do a show that way on Twitter, well, as of right now, he could still do that. So, I mean, is it really even effective? Because I just don't really understand, one, why people are celebrating, and two, why they do this at all when you're not going to stop the flow of information.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, it's two ways of looking at this. Obviously he still has the Infowars.com and all that, and with everyone else could have the same thing, and you could go on to MeWe or whatever other platform. But the thing is, like, these are the big companies that most people are on currently, and if they're not going to come out and say, like, yeah, we're biased against right-wing journalists, and they're not going to get that reaction from the public, because even if someone's not right-wing, if someone's like even left-wing, they'll hear that and say, well, I don't want to be part of a company that's going to have any kind of bias, because what's next? Is my content next? So they want to save their own ass by not admitting anything, but at the same time kind of shadow banning, like you guys said before. So it all depends on how people react. Like, it could be they win, they shut everything down, and they feed people what they want to feed them, or people actually react and say, you know what, this is fucking bullshit, and I'm going to take my business elsewhere. I'm going to take my business to somewhere that won't be biased against right wing, left wing, center wing. I don't think there is center wing, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, center wing. Yep. Yeah, like you were saying before, I mean, if anybody else wants to weigh in on this about, is it even going to be effective? Because, Josh, what do you think about it?
I'm sorry, which one do I think about specifically?
Just about if this whole thing of people being removed from certain platforms, is it even going to be effective? Because like I was saying before, Alex still has Infowars.com. Other people will find ways to get their message out. So I mean,
well, like in the chat we had on Facebook earlier, I made a statement. I think ultimately, like the more they like banning these smaller names is going to get what they want to cross. But the more bold they get, where they really start banning people like Alex Jones and stuff that have these really big followings. Banning somebody like Alex Jones, what that actually does is legitimizes his arguments. It says he's saying, look, he's the kind of guy who would say Twitter and Facebook and all these people, there's a conspiracy against people who think what I think, and they're going to try to silence me. And then they go and they silence him. All that's going to do is legitimize everything he says. And everybody who follows him, it's not like they're not going to be able to find him somewhere. And all that's going to do is make him more powerful in the end. And like Twitter, somebody showed me recently, their stock has been on the decline, and it's going to be happening with all these platforms. And when they start banning people, it's not like the right wing and libertarians are some small, tiny fraction of the population. There's a reason Republicans keep getting voted into office. It's because they are Republicans are like half the fucking population. So, if you keep banning these people who have specific views, you're showing your bias. What you're going to start doing is you're going to start losing your entire audience. Like, you have to have these people supporting you for your company to function. And the more you start showing these people, hey, we don't care about you because of how you believe, you're going to start losing those people. Like Facebook. The only reason I keep on Facebook right now is just to stay in touch with my family, you know, and to help run the SNL Facebook stuff. But like, you know, it's just every day I'm seeing reasons that like I don't want to be a part of this stuff. I don't want to have to be on Twitter. I don't want to have to be on Facebook because it's just obnoxious. Like, I'm constantly concerned that my Facebook or my Twitter might get randomly deleted just because they didn't like something I said, you know? I mean, I've gotten bans, like short-term bans just for stupid shit I said because it was obvious somebody didn't like it, you know? I don't think that these things are actually going to, like, long-term help them at all. All it's going to do is make the opposing voice that they're trying to silence that much more powerful.
And, you know, it's funny you say that about how it's going to make, you know, people much more powerful. We were just talking a little bit a while ago about midterms coming up. And, you know, one thing that the right is really going to trumpet during this time is about how, you know, don't let the left have control because, you know, they're going to, you know, if you think that the left is silencing people now, just wait until the left get back in power. If they take over, you know, the House and the Senate, one, they're going to spoil Trump's agenda, and two, they're really going to really start, you know, silencing dissenters. So, you know, it's really funny you say that because I was actually thinking about that before you said it. You know, about what the right will do in order to keep, you know, in order for the GOP to keep the majority in the House. So. Yeah, you know, is it really effective? Because one, you know, you're not going to silence people, but you're going to make people much more powerful. You know, one, maybe not make people much more powerful, but make their message that much more powerful, and not just Alex Jones, but anyone else. Anyone either silenced or either in fear of being silenced.
I would say it's not just a person. It's an idea that you kind of give credence to when, like, you feel like an idea is powerful enough that you have to try to silence it. You're telling people we're scared of this. This idea makes us concerned because, you know, we want people to think the way we want you to think. You know, we don't want you to see this idea and be able to, like, look at this idea and rationalize and be like, okay, well, that's obviously false. We need you to, like, not be able to hear it at all. And that shows people that you're scared of that idea. It doesn't matter how, like, it's just so stupid because you think the most rational people in the world would look at Alex Jones and be like, that guy's fucking nuts. But people still believe him. So the fact that they have to silence him, I'm like, I'm sorry, but you're giving him credit and you're saying that we're scared of him. You're saying that we can't just let people be rational enough to look at his ideas and be like, okay, he's out of his fucking mind, kind of thing. And that's what, like, I don't know. I think that's the problem that they're creating. They're showing people that they're scared of these ideas, and that's just going to lend more credit to them. I do have to bounce now. I'm sorry I wasn't able to be on for very long. I'm glad I was able to join it all. It was a good conversation, and I hope you guys have a good rest of the stream, and I'll see y'all later.
Have a good night, Josh.
Have a good night.
All right, man. Bye, guys.
Yeah, I'm gonna add to his point of, you know, giving them power by silencing, because, like, you know, think about if, you know, you read a news article and, you know, it just sounds like the most unbelievable crap that you've ever heard in your life, and, you know, you're just gonna dismiss it right away, and then they delete it, and then there's this big conspiracy about how they deleted it, and you're like, well, even though it sounded ridiculous to me when I first read it, I'm starting to believe it now more because someone doesn't want me to know that ridiculous information.
Yeah, you are right. I mean, and, you know, I mean, like the way I see it, put all the ridiculous information out there, because then you get to hear. You're not hearing just one message or even just 2 points of view, but you're hearing numerous points of view, and then you get to question things. Then you get to look into things. Well, the people who actually take the time to do it. I understand that there are people out there who will just hear something and then they'll just repeat it because they don't want to take the time to research it, either because they hear one thing that's good enough for them, or they just hear something that they agree with and they take it as the word of God and they think that nothing else matters. Low information voters, lazy voters, as we like to call them. But, still, that doesn't mean that you go around, blocking the thing or silencing the things that you don't like. Just let it all out there. I mean, put everything out there and then let people decide. I mean, isn't that the way it's supposed to be anyway?
Yeah, and it's kind of like, you ever see those memes with the really bad advice, like throwing hot water on a cold windshield?
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yep.
If some poor SOB actually believes that, like, hey, it's a pretty good idea, I think I'll try it. It's, I'm having that problem right now, I don't have time to think. Is that really the meme's fault? Because, like 10,000 people laughed at it, like realizing it was humor, and the one idiot just decided, like, oh, I just learned something today.
It's on the internet. It must be true. Yeah. I know it's a joke we all like to say, but there are some people who actually believe that. I guess it is kind of sad. But, and, we kind of drove that one into the wall about as much as we could. The last question we'll ask is, why isn't it consistent? Now, we were talking about Sarah Jiang. Now, Sarah Jiang still has a Twitter. I just looked it up, and it is still there. But, these are some of the tweets, because she was really big in the news about a week ago because of things that she was tweeting about white people. Now, these are just some of the tweets that she put up. Dumbass white people marking up the internet with their opinions like dogs pissing on fire hydrants. Are white people genetically predisposed to burn faster in the sun, thus logically being only fit to live underground like groveling goblins? Oh man, it's kind of sick how much joy I get out of being cruel to white old men. I dare you to get on Wikipedia and play things white people can definitely take credit for. It's really hard. I just realized why I can't stand watching Breaking Bad or Battlestar Galactica. The premise of both is just white people being miserable. Now, that is a lot of tweets, a lot of things to say that you would think would violate the terms of service because it's, designated hate speech. Now, it certainly does strike up a debate about whether racism, they call it reverse racism is real. No, reverse racism is real. There's just one thing. It's called racism. It doesn't matter who you're saying it about. If it's racist, then it's racist, obviously. But
yeah, exactly.
She did not get any repercussions from Twitter. All she got was just a bunch of people replying to her. I don't know if anybody got their account suspended because I'm sure some people had some choice words to say to her.
Yeah,
I don't know what
probably at least 10 people called her the N-word and got suspended or banned or whatever else.
Goodness.
Probably some didn't even say the N-word or even anything like actually racist towards her. But a couple did.
Yeah, but the question to ask though is why is it not consistent? Like I was talking about Scott Horton earlier. He told Jonathan Katz to quit being a quote unquote boohoo little bitch. I have read much worse than that. I've had things much worse than that said to me before. I mean, I didn't go and report it. I just let it go. But if I had reported it, maybe something would have been done about it. But I imagine there are some that do get reported and they don't get taken down. So, I mean, why are they not consistent with this?
I mean, you can say that on TV now. You can say that on a kid's show, for Christ's sake.
On a kid's show?
Maybe not a kid's show, but, like, it's not anywhere as big of a deal as it was even, like, 10, 15 years ago. Like, things that, the word bitch, it's like it's so low on the vocabulary of bad things to say that it's on network cable TV, in daytime hours. So
it's become almost like a term of endearment among friends as well. Yeah. But but I mean,
what is it? What's the name? Kayla, how you if you pronounce it, is someone who went over Twitter. She got some random person trying to slander her publicly, and she reported to Twitter, and Twitter was like, "No, we're not gonna do jack shit about it because we don't care."
Yeah, I think it is what Josh was saying. I think it's less the Twitter company itself, although it may be, but it's probably more the actual workers that actually are the ones monitoring the situation, the ones that are actually had the power of the click and
Mhm.
all
Yeah,
that
that
kind
is
of
the
stuff.
same case with YouTube. They have
Yeah, because
reviews for when an account get flagged, and that's what I remember with some of Barbara's videos when tons of people start false flagging it and an account get removed. But there are some people who are like, okay, but I'm gonna try to get it back for you. But the reviews are like, nope, we're not gonna do it because bullshit reasons.
yeah, yeah, and aren't they all in like California or like semi-liberal areas where they're probably gonna be employing 90%
That
liberals?
I don't know. I believe Brits
I,
is either someone one of them. I'm not
I
certain. But
I hate calling
that's
them
South of
liberals.
California.
Actually, they
So
they are not liberals. They are not liberals.
oh, they're the
They
what
are
some people call the modern
progressives.
liberal.
Yeah, that's
There's a
what we
difference in
call them because that's
classical
yeah.
liberal and modern liberal.
Yeah, I'm sick of saying two words. I want my word back.
They are
Uh,
progressives, or as we like to call them, regressives.
Right.
well,
But
they were neo progressive. That's basically
Progressively getting
progressive
worse.
disguising themselves as progressive people.
Right.
right,
Well,
right.
it's just like Patriot Act. You have to have something positive in the word. So like,
Uh,
that way people will buy into it. Like, oh, there can't be anything unpatriotic about the Patriot Act. There can't be anything unprogressive about the progressives.
yes.
Yeah. Well, I will say that if they were consistent with it, nothing would be legitimized. Alex Jones would not be legitimized. People on the right would not be legitimized. The GOP message, which you're going to hear very soon about silencing dissenters, that would not be legitimized if they kept it consistent. And as Tim was saying earlier about how there will be some sacrificial lambs, but they will be kept away just long enough for people to forget about it. And then it's going to go right back to what it was before. If
Oh
they
yeah,
were consistent with it, there would be nothing to legitimize, and we would not even be talking about this right now. See, the reason that we're talking about this right now is because it's happening, and we see it happening before our very eyes. What
yeah,
were you going to
but
say?
and like you were saying about how like they'll do it and then they'll take it away so no one ever talks about it. It's kind of like that Time magazine cover with the little immigrant girl, and everyone's like, oh well, this is what happened, and then it came out a week later after it was in the
Mm-hmm.
headlines for a week. Once it was done with the headlines, everyone moved on to the next thing. I think Russia was striking again with the memes or something. I don't know. Um,
How many times does that happen, though? I mean, how many times have they taken a certain image? Like, there's
I,
that one
I,
image of, like the little kid who's like 2 or 3 years old, who's like supposed to be like standing behind a fence. He looks like he's crying, and they made it look like he was an actual person kept inside of, like an actual immigrant kept inside of a cage. Come to find out later that he was at some demonstration. He was at some protest, and
oh
there's
yeah,
actually
yeah.
pictures of him running around and playing and having fun, and they had him stand behind this little made up fence looking thing, made him look upset. He was basically a prop. I mean, and they had to retract that. They had to retract the girl on the Time cover, as you were saying, and there are a lot of other things that they had to retract as well. How many times has that happened?
Yeah,
And you would
More
think
than
that
more
by
than
now they would have
I can
learned by
count.
now, but they don't.
and you know what the damnedest thing is, right? Is like people that are on that side will justify it and say, well, it's okay if it's untruthful if it's getting to a point of where we want. Just think about that way of thinking right quick.
Or they're gonna ignore that it's proved to be fake and still gonna yell that it's real. Like
Right.
that
Well,
whole thing, the kids that are put into cages. But and they show pictures of during Obama's period, but they're still gonna yell that's all Trump doing, despite the fact clearly it was Obama, but they don't want to care about the truth. So.
Oh yeah, anytime a Democrat is in office, it's fucking sunshines and I just had a mind blank, but it's all good. It's all good things for the Democrats. It's all bad things. It's like, oh, Trump is doing so well because Obama fixed the economy. Obama had such a hard time because Bush screwed up everything. Clinton dug his way out of so many Republicans, and all the Republicans past FDR were just lucky that FDR put in the policies they did to save America.
Right. Bill Clinton had a hand in housing crisis.
It's the same way on the other side. Reagan fixed everything for 8 years, and then the Democrats came and screwed it up, and same idea on the other side.
Yep.
I know, it's all a bunch of just tribal drama.
You got to remember this one thing: truth doesn't matter anymore. It's only about the message.
Yeah,
you're correct.
Yeah, just like I was saying, where they're just like, talking about the thing, the kid in the cage, and how it got zoomed out and it showed it was a demonstration. And I was talking to leftists in different groups, and they were saying, well, it's okay that it's a dishonest image as long as our message gets across.
Exactly. The truth doesn't matter. It's all about the message.
Yeah.
It's all about the narrative.
Oh,
Nothing matters but the narrative.
Yep.
Yep. Well, for everyone who joined us in our chat tonight, we really appreciate you all tuning in. As we talk about this, discussing about, is this an actual purge? There are people being silenced. Will any one of us here be silenced?
Not enough people to call them purge yet.
Not enough people yet to call them purge. But could this snowball into something along those lines? I mean, anyone here on this panel, any one of us can silence.
I don't know who showed in the group, but someone in the group already showed a tweet where they are already planning to make Joe Rogan the next one.
Yeah, Joe Rogan's our Jesus.
I would be not surprised if they in the end is gonna try to decide that Dave Rubin is gonna be kicked off, and I will say probably even more YouTubers will get kicked off, like Logic, Skeptic, Blair White. I pretty much certain they get booted off as well. I can honestly see it happen.
Honestly, I think I hate to say it like this, but the truth of the matter is, I think Dave Rubin is a little bit safer than most because he's gay. And and the left would have a hard time justifying that.
Yeah, but he's still a conservative.
Right. Doesn't matter.
Well, he's not even a conservative. He's a conservative.
They kunnen then bits him on that he's a conservative, and that's why it's okay.
Yeah, it's like he's not ultra left, so he's a conservative now.
Well, I would say that they would have a little bit harder time with. I would say they would have a little bit harder time with Dave Rubin because he's not Milo Yiannopoulos. I mean, Milo Yiannopoulos makes it easy for them to demonize him because of all the things that he says. I mean, yeah, he is openly gay and he's married to a man, but he makes it very simple for them. Dave Rubin, not so much. Dave Rubin is very professional.
That Milo guy, he has like videos. He'll go like live at an airport and just start like not pushing people, but he'll be like doing like stupid things to people, just like basically being a jerk wherever he's going. And it's like, it's kind of funny to watch, but you would really think about it. It's like, man, if he came up and like spilled his drink on me, I'd probably punch him. I don't care who he is.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, more Dave Rubin would be down the pipeline somewhere.
Yeah. And all the left would be praising me like, oh, you punched a Nazi. Like, no, I just punched the guy that dropped the drink on me, man.
But if that is completely possible that Milo would have been a Nazi because he would be killed in seconds anyway by them.
Oh, yeah.
And that is always, they love calling a lot of people on the right Nazis and shit like that. Like there were black people on there, there were LGBT people on there.
It's because they're the actual Nazis. So it's just like if you look at actual history,
Nazis were left-wing people, but the left is trying to like push. No, they're right-wing. They always were left.
Well,
Yeah, calling Candace Owens a Nazi.
Yeah, well, Nazism
But
is
yes,
different
Candace
from
Owens is a
fascism.
left wing. She's pretending to be right wing. That's already been proven months ago.
all right.
Yeah.
Well, more and more people are becoming, labeled as alt-right. I mean, I don't think the left even really knows what alt-right actually is. We had a live stream a long time ago on Sarcasm and Liberty, and we invited a person who was an actual member of the alt-right, who came here and explained to us what it was. But you see a lot of people getting the alt-right label, and the left doesn't even know what the alt-right is. But the alt-right for them is just something to demonize and to advance their own message.
According to Spencer, the alt-right is actually a social democrat group.
Yeah, Richard
Spencer.
There's that guy.
So the alt-right are actually lefties, like what people already been saying for months.
Yeah. Another thing,
yes,
and this is more popular back then, but with all the lefties and calling out all the racism, and it's like they started talking about skinheads, like, oh, skinheads are racist. Like, you realize skinhead is a working class movement that started with Jamaican immigrants in Britain. It's like calling the idea of skinhead racist just like completely ignores the origin.
Right.
Like, yes, there are skinheads that are in fact racist. There's different groups of them and everything, but it's like at its core, the idea is a working class movement, and it's like, what's the left? It's a working class movement.
Right. But, back to my original point, if this does, snowball into something that we could consider a purge, is it really going to be effective? Because, I mean, we always find ways to get the message out, whether it's through making memes, it's doing what we're doing right here. I mean, if we couldn't do a live stream on YouTube, we'd find another way to do it. We can go on another platform and we can still talk to, the people who want to hear from us. So, I mean, yeah, we can go somewhere else. I mean, is it really going to be effective? And
I see a lot of YouTube already moving slowly to BitChute. That's already happening.
I think Facebook will be all right for a while. I mean, Mark's just too busy smoking them meats and trying to act human. Right. So, he's got enough on his plate.
Yeah, nice show you put on there, Mark. But we really know what's really going on. But
hey,
for everyone,
he endorsed Sweet Baby Ray, so that's all right. That's the best barbecue sauce you can get for $3.
Oh, all right. I agree with you on that. For everyone who tuned in tonight, we really appreciate you. You can find us on Twitter at sarcasm_liberty. You can find us on Facebook and on Instagram, Sarcasm and Liberty. We appreciate everyone who tuned in. Please join us again as we come back to you again next week. Good night, everyone.
Hey, guys.
Bye.
And before we go, I will say that they will try to silence speech. They will try to suppress many things, but the one thing that we make sure they will not suppress: life, liberty, and sarcasm. Good night.